British Columbia is sleepwalking through the greatest medical scandal in modern history. And it's our kids who are at risk. When you're an adult, you have the opportunity to make adult choices. But when you're a child, we have to be the ones that stand up and protect them.
The left has completely separated the term gender from sex. It means something else entirely.
John Rustad, the leader of the BC Conservatives, banned all of his party members from coming to a presentation that I gave inside the legislature.
Schools are transitioning children behind their backs.
Spreading disproven conspiracy theories.
A lot went down in British Columbia's legislature last week when it comes to the fight to protect children from radical gender ideology and the harms of so-called affirmative care. In case you missed it, one BC House Leader Tara Armstrong proposed new legislation in the form of a proposed bill that was titled Protecting Minors from Gender Transition Act.
This bill will bring BC in line with the UK and other progressive European countries that have banned harmful and unscientific social and medical gender transition procedures for minors.
And on the same day, the One BC Party also hosted an event that featured child protection activist Billboard Chris, whose name is Chris Elston, who is also the founder of a nonprofit called the We Speak Truth Foundation, which takes on the same type of fight. Now, you might not be overly surprised to know that under the BC Socialist NDP government, the bill did not pass, and we'll talk about that in this interview with MLA Armstrong as well as Elston. But what you're probably surprised to know is that although the BC Conservatives at large mostly supported the bill, according to One BC and Elston, their MLAs were banned from showing up to Billboard Chris's event. I'm Drea Humphrey with Rebel News, and here's more on this story. Now, Ms. Armstrong, I'm going to start with you. Tell us about this bill. In fact, you said if it were to pass, this piece of legislation, it would put an end to a great era of indoctrination and medical malpractice.
It will end this unbelievable era of indoctrination and medical malpractice.
Indeed. Well, first of all, we have to protect our children, Drea. I mean, it's the most important thing we do. I think as legislatures, I take it very seriously that our children are currently being harmed by what is happening. So my bill called Protecting Minors from Gender Transition Act would have stopped puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and surgeries from being given to minor children. As well, in schools, it would have stopped the use of the wrong pronouns. It would have kept boys out of girls' spaces and removed gender ideology from the curriculum, which I feel is essential.
And that would have been a lot of sanity returning, at least I think so. That's my personal opinion. And, when you proposed it, you said really common sense things like no child is born wrong and we don't need scalpels to fix children.
Every child is beautiful just as they are. No drugs or scalpels are needed.
When we look at the list here of MLAs who voted for it, we see that the One BC, Jordan Keeley, most of the BC Conservatives were for it, and the BC NDP passed it down. Now, what do you make of the list? Is there anything about who didn't vote we should know about?
Well, I think because this is first reading, as a courtesy, these bills always get passed first reading. So the fact that this didn't is quite telling. It's an introduction to a bill. The entire legislature, the MLAs don't know the contents of the bill. They haven't had a chance to read it. So for it to be shot down on first reading is very disturbing. Of course, we had the entire NDP side vote it down, along with the independent Eleanor Sturco. And two BC Conservatives ran out of the chamber so they could avoid having to rise for the division call. So, yeah, I think we should be concerned. We have Alia Warbus and Amelia Boultby from the Conservatives saying they're conservative, but refusing to vote and pass this bill past first reading is quite telling.
Mm-hmm. It really is. Now, Chris Elston, you've been going around the world and, of course, many times in Canada to shed light on the importance of protecting kids from gender ideology. What do you make of how the votes went?
Well, it's basic democracy to pass first reading. It says nothing of the Conservatives, actually, that they decided, most of them, to allow this to go to first reading. What really speaks to their behavior is what happened earlier in the day when John Rustad, the leader of the BC Conservatives, banned all of his party members from coming to a presentation that I gave inside the legislature.
Right. I was going to get to that. So the One BC party, in addition to sort of the timing of this proposed legislation, had invited you. My understanding, it was booked in the Hall of Honor, is it called?
That's right. So since July, I believe, or August, we've had the Hall of Honor booked. It's a bit of an open area inside the legislature. And it's really where these events should be held, and people walking through the building can maybe stop and watch some of it as well. But at the 11th hour, at 4:30 p.m. the day before, the Speaker of the House sent an email to 1BC, to Tara and to Dallas, stating that this event had been moved to this other room on the third floor, much less accessible to those with disabilities as well. And the reason for that, we don't know. He couldn't say. They said it was a safety issue, yet the Sergeant at Arms had said there are no safety issues with this event. And clearly this was just a political move to make our event less seen.
I want to pause there just for a sec to show a clip of this, dangerous presentation that you gave that day.
This is the genderbread person. This is the most used resource in the world. You'll find this at gender clinics and children's hospitals. You'll find it in schools. And it defines gender identity right on there. It's a little hard to read. But it says your gender identity is based on your personality, your job, hobbies, likes and dislikes, roles in society, and expectations upon you. What does your job have to do with your gender, your hobbies, your roles? Are we going to take a little boy who perhaps doesn't like playing sports with the other boys, who's not rough and tumble, maybe he's a bit more sensitive and likes baking with mom? Are we going to teach this little boy that he's really a girl? That's what gender ideology does. And it takes tomboys who are struggling perhaps with puberty, and it teaches them that really they're boys. Because the left has completely separated the term gender from sex. It means something else entirely. None of them can define it. I know because I've asked 10,000 people. It's always a circular definition, but it comes down to just a feeling. And it's a feeling based on stereotypes. How many women here love going through puberty? It was very dysphoric for you, wasn't it? You're all transgender, according to this ideology. Because that's all it is. It's discomfort.
So that's just a taste of it. We've had you speak also at Rebel Lives. You really are just sticking your neck out for these vulnerable kids who are at risk for things like feeling like they're born in the wrong body when they're going to grow up to not think otherwise. Let's talk a little bit about this safety narrative, because we hear this all the time. Anytime, usually something associated with the right, even though I don't always like going right or left, but it seems like it's a safety issue when it's not. So can you tell me a little bit more about that, Tara Armstrong? Did you guys dig into that to get what they meant about that?
We tried. They were very evasive in terms of providing information. What we were told was that the speaker had to consider the safety of everybody, including all the other MLAs, all the other staff, and not just our group. But to be honest with you, it felt very political as opposed to safety related. And I mean, we've seen this over and over again, haven't we? Especially in the past 5 years, everything's for your safety. And in this particular case, I think it's more about the safety of what people are willing to hear or what they want people to hear. And that really is concerning, because every piece of information that Chris shared was shared with the utmost respect for the people involved, and also with complete and utter, just competency. He knew what he wanted to share. He had the information. And I think it's really important that these pieces of information get out to people so they can make informed decisions on all of this that we're talking about. I mean, these are children.
Drea, much of my presentation focuses on the words from the trans health professionals themselves, like Daniel Metzger, the pediatric endocrinologist at BC Children's Hospital. There were several video clips of him speaking about how children cannot give informed consent to this, how he's sterilizing kids. These are facts that the NDP and many of these conservatives, in fact, deny. And in fact, we had the Attorney General during question period, when Dallas Brody mentioned how at the presentation that day in the legislature, a father from North Vancouver came, whose son was socially transitioned with a new name and pronouns at school without the father's knowledge or consent. And Nikki Sharma, the Attorney General, the top legal official in British Columbia, stood up and called this a disproven conspiracy theory.
What do you have to say to parents who are justifiably enraged by the reality that under your direction, schools are transitioning children behind their backs?
Spreading disproven conspiracy theories to spread fear and misinformation that targets vulnerable kids when those decisions should be made by their parents.
You can read the BC Teachers Federation owned handbook, where it says it is policy to hide a child's social transition from parents unless the child wants them to know. This is the same federally as well. This is well known. Even went to jail for 6 months for trying to protect his daughter from being transitioned. And they are still pushing this lie like this isn't happening. Well, if it isn't happening and you say it's not happening because you know it's bad, why can't you vote for a bill that ensures it doesn't happen?
So many whys. We had to bleep that name because there's a publication ban on that name, which is a whole other issue. Now, again, the BC Conservatives, you say, were banned from attending. Some might be shocked to hear that. I mean, this was the party that said, hey, we're going to tackle SOGI, which we know is the sexual orientation gender identity program that is linked to convincing some of these vulnerable children into believing they're born in the wrong body. And then now you're saying they were banned. And is it true that some NDP staffers showed up to the event, but they didn't?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy, right? I mean, and still I believe in John Rustad's platform, his leadership review, he spoke about SOGI, but yet his actions and his caucus's actions just simply don't match their words. And yes, there were actually a few NDP staffers who came up to me and introduced themselves and asked if it was okay if they were there to hear the presentation. And of course, I said, of course, this information is for everybody. Everybody should hear what Chris has to say. So yes, I mean, we had 3 NDP staffers, maybe more, but 3 that I knew of, and no BC Conservatives there for the actual presentation.
For the first time in BC history, we had this beautiful bill presented. Look at how gorgeous that is. Protect Minors from Gender Transition Act. I knew it wasn't going to pass because the NDP are going to die on this hill of maiming and sterilizing children and turning them into anorgasmic lifelong pharmaceutical patients. The only way we eventually stop this is first by voting them out. We might have to shame the Conservatives to come along with this as well, because they don't want to talk about this issue either. But what we did was we started tens of thousands of conversations. And Tara Armstrong and Dallas Brody also led by example for all the other politicians across the country. Because so far, the only province that has presented a bill like this, and they did pass it, was in Alberta by Danielle Smith. But that was only for kids under the age of 16. And that's not good enough. This bill would have protected kids 18 and under, which is much better. These bills are passing all throughout other jurisdictions in the world. 28 states have put a stop to this. And even in places like England and Scotland, which are under leftist governments, they have banned puberty blockers. They went a step further and banned cross-sex hormones in Scotland. The pediatricians put a stop to this in Finland, Sweden, Norway, Denmark. It's basically a done practice now. But for some reason in Canada, all of the politicians want to ignore this. And it's shameful because this is the greatest child abuse in modern medicine history. So thank you so much to Tara and Dallas for leading the way on this. I know they've generated ripples which are going to be felt for years to come, and this will encourage others to take this courageous step as well.
You know what? It's a battle worth fighting, and it's one we have to eventually win. And the first step is what we just did. We opened the Overton window, and we said, hey, we're acknowledging this in the BC legislature, and we want something to be done. So we will continue the fight. Dallas and I are warriors when it comes to children and protecting the rights of these young children. And again, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. When you're an adult, you have the opportunity to make adult choices. But when you're a child, We have to be the ones that stand up and protect them because they don't know all the perils of decisions they're making at these young ages. And we have to make sure that they make it through to adulthood intact.
At Rebel News, we don't back down from bringing you the other side of the story, and sometimes that puts into question conservative governments. If you appreciate the valuable role that we fill, especially when it comes to exposing radical gender ideology, please consider being a part of what makes that possible at our special website called stopclassroomgrooming.com. We appreciate your support.